Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about what a day in the life looked like for a woman working in a public bathhouse in the Middle Ages. Picture it, a dirty, cold morning, a damp and gloomy city, narrow streets where danger lurks around every corner. Our worker wakes up before sunrise, lying on her straw mattress, already hungry and tired before the day even begins. She heads off to work through slippery streets, dodging piles of manure and trying to avoid any unwanted encounters. But before you get too comfortable, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I'm really curious to see where everyone's joining us from. Now, get cozy and let's begin. You awaken, as always, in the hour before even the crows dare to croak. The night has never been kind to you. Sleep is not a restful escape, but an interval between one misery and the next. You lie on your pallet, a generous word for a sack filled with straw, dust, and everything else that finds its way onto the floor. The straw pricks through the thin cloth, and you scratch at the bites left by the legions of bedbugs and lice that have long ago claimed your body as their own private fiefdom. The air in your tiny room is thick and close. There are no windows, only a gap beneath the warped wooden door through which the cold creeps in and your own breath seeps out. It is always cold here. Even in high summer, the stones beneath your back seem to drink any warmth you try to hoard. In winter, you feel as though you are sleeping inside the bones of a dead beast, the chill gnawing steadily through flesh to marrow. You have slept in your clothes again, as you always do. It is not that you care about modesty. Modesty is a luxury for those with the means to own more than one set of rags. No, you sleep clothed because to undress in this cold would be an act of foolishness. Your dress smells of smoke, old sweat, and faintly of soap, a bitter irony, for you work among water and yet are never truly clean. You cannot remember the last time you had new clothing. The last time you tried to wash your dress, the cloth grew thinner and the holes wider. At some point, the fabric will simply surrender, but until then, you patch and sew, like everyone else. There is no pillow. If you are lucky, you tuck a bundle of rags beneath your head. If not, you lie flat, your head pressed against straw and wood and the ever present dust. Your body aches. You are young, but your bones protest like those of an old woman. Your back is tight from yesterday's labors. Your hands, rough, cracked, and red, remind you that you will spend another day in cold water and scalding steam, lifting heavy buckets and bending, always bending. As you shift, you hear the rustle of mice, perhaps a rat, foraging near your feet. You have long since learned to ignore them unless they grow bold enough to climb onto the bed, and then you simply sweep them off with a hand and hope they do not bite. The straw is shared territory. The mice take their share. You take what is left. There is no sunlight yet, only the promise of another dreary day. Through the walls, thin, warped boards, barely more than a suggestion of separation. You hear the muted stirrings of the other inhabitants, The woman in the next room coughs, a deep, rattling cough that never seems to go away. A child whimpers. Somewhere, a man snores with such force that the whole building seems to shudder. Someone stumbles past your door, probably heading to the privy outside. You can already smell it, sweet and rotten and sharp, the scent that drifts up from the shared pit and hangs over the alleyways. Your stomach cramps with hunger. You have not eaten since yesterday afternoon. A piece of black bread, hard enough to crack a tooth, and a bit of watery soup that tasted more of wood than of vegetables. Breakfast is a dream for another kind of person, someone with means, someone who owns things, someone who is not you. Still, you reach beneath your blanket, searching for any forgotten crust or scrap. Sometimes you find nothing. Sometimes you find a bit of food already claimed by mold or gnawed by mice. Today, you find only lint and your own thin fingers. You rise slowly, stiffly. Every joint protests. You do not light a candle. Candles are precious, and your coin is not. Instead, you move through the darkness by memory, feeling your way along the edge of the wall, careful not to trip over the other bodies sleeping in the same room. Privacy is another luxury you do not possess. You step over the legs of a girl you know only by her breathing, careful not to wake her. No one thanks you, and you do not expect it. The first thing you do is pull your shawl tightly around your shoulders. The wool is rough and thin, but it is all you have. The chill cuts through it, but you pretend not to notice. You gather your hair, already tangled and grimy from yesterday's steam, and tie it back with a strip of cloth. Hair left loose is a hazard in the bathhouse. You have seen women lose locks to the fire, or worse, to the crawling fingers of the men who visit after dark. You look around the room and see the others beginning to wake. Some groan and turn over. Some stare blankly into the gloom, waiting for the will to move. You do not speak. There is nothing to say. Each of you knows what the day will bring: labor, exhaustion, perhaps a scolding from the mistress of the baths, perhaps a bit of laughter in the few quiet moments. More likely, there will be none of that, only the endless repetition of tasks that never end, for filth accumulates as quickly as you scrub it away. You take a moment to listen. In the distance, the bells of the monastery begin to chime. They sound heavy, funereal. Each toll is a reminder the city is awake. Life begins anew, as it always does, not with promise or hope, but with the necessity of survival. You shiver, not from the cold, but from the knowledge that today will be exactly like yesterday, and tomorrow and all the days after. You gather your things: a bucket, a worn cloth, the small bundle of herbs you use to chase away the worst smells. You glance at the others one last time, wondering if any of you will not return tonight. People disappear all the time. Sickness, hunger, violence. No one asks questions, and no one is missed for long. You are replaceable, as everyone is. Finally, you step into the corridor, careful not to make noise. The day has begun, though the sun is not yet risen. There is work to do, and you are already late. In the distance, the city groans and shifts, a sleeping giant awakening. You are a tiny part of it, a cog in a machine built on filth and sweat and quiet, unending suffering. Outside, the darkness is complete. You move forward into the cold, into another day that promises nothing but more of the same. You remind yourself, as you do every morning, you must survive. That is all there is. You step out into the street while it is still night, or so it seems. The stars hang somewhere above you, half hidden by a greasy haze. The sky does not so much lighten as change color from pitch black to a sort of gray that has been soaked in dirty water, the kind that seeps into everything in this city. The moon, a pale and toothless thing, stares down with the same indifference as everyone else here. You pull your shawl tighter, though the wool cannot keep out the chill that sits heavy on your bones. The city at this hour is both empty and not empty. There are people, yes, but they are not the people anyone wishes to see. Ragged figures huddle beneath doorways, blanketed in whatever they could find or steal, some asleep, some awake, all wrapped in their own silent misery. You recognize a few of them. The old woman with no teeth who used to sweep the church steps for coins, the drunkard who sometimes mistakes you for his dead wife and weeps into your skirt, the cluster of children who always seem to be watching from the shadows, thin and quick and utterly silent. The ground is uneven beneath your feet. There is no pavement here, only dirt packed hard by centuries of footsteps, with ruts and holes that catch the unwary. In summer, the dust fills your nose and throat. In winter, mud and filth cling to your shoes and the hem of your dress, adding weight to your every step. Today, it is cold and damp, and the streets are decorated with puddles edged in ice, reflecting the sickly lantern light in broken patterns. You walk with purpose, but not with haste. There is no reason to rush. The bathhouse will not open until the bell strikes, and if you arrive early, there is only more work waiting for you. The city, though mostly silent, still breathes. You hear distant dogs barking, the uneven clop of a cart passing by, the rattle of iron-shod wheels, and from somewhere far off, a man shouting curses at the sky, or perhaps at himself. It is impossible to tell. You keep your head down, eyes fixed on the path ahead. To make eye contact here is to invite attention, and attention is rarely a good thing. The men who wander the streets at this hour are not seeking company for the sake of conversation. You pass one group clustered around a barrel, laughing too loudly, their faces already red with drink even though the sun has not risen. You walk faster, though you try not to show it. If they notice you, they might jeer, might reach out a hand, might decide that you owe them something, anything, a smile, a word, a bit of what little you have. You have learned to be invisible. You are neither young nor old, neither beautiful nor ugly. You dress plainly, you walk as though you belong to the street, as though you are a part of the scenery, just another shape in the fog. If you are lucky, you will pass unnoticed. If you are unlucky, there is nothing to be done except endure and hope the damage is not too great. You skirt around a pile of dung, fresh and steaming, evidence that the night carts have already passed through, cleaning the filth from the richer neighborhoods and depositing it here in the quarters of people like you. The smell is overwhelming, sweet, sharp, and rancid, a perfume that clings to your clothes and hair no matter how hard you scrub. Flies are slow this early, but soon they will swarm, covering every surface, filling every crevice. It is a constant living presence, a reminder that no matter how hard you try, you will never truly be clean. You pass by the market square. It is empty now, the stalls abandoned, the goods gone, the ground littered with broken crates and wilted cabbage leaves. In a few hours, the traders will return, shouting and bargaining, haggling over the price of onions or eels, or the sort of bread that crumbles at a touch. You will hear them later, their voices rising above the steam of the bathhouse. But for now, the only sound is your own footsteps and the whisper of rats running along the gutters. The bathhouse is not far. It sits on the edge of the market, half hidden by larger, grander buildings that shield it from the wind, but not from the eyes of the city. The sign above the door is faded, the paint flaked away by years of rain and sun, but you know it by heart. A crudely painted basin, water spilling over the sides. The door is thick and studded with iron nails, always slightly ajar, as if it too is too weary to close. On your way, you pass the church. Its bells are silent now, but the stones seem to watch you, ancient and unblinking. You cross yourself out of habit, though faith is hard to come by. You wonder, as you do every morning, if anyone inside prays for people like you, or if the prayers stop at the altar and go no further. The priest sometimes visits the bathhouse, always with an air of distaste, as though he cannot quite believe that people live and sweat and suffer in the same city as his God. You walk by the baker's shop. The smell of bread is absent. At this hour, the ovens are cold, and the baker is still abed. You remember suddenly the taste of fresh bread, the rare times you have had it, soft and warm, the crust crackling under your teeth. It has been a long time. Your stomach rumbles, and you press a hand against it, as though you might quiet the hunger by force. The alley narrows, and you pick your way around another pile of refuse, this one crawling with beetles. The walls are close on either side, damp with condensation, streaked with something black and sticky. You glance upward, half expecting to see someone leaning out a window to pour chamber pot contents onto the street below, but the windows here are dark and shuttered. The people who live above the bathhouse do not rise before the sun. They have the luxury of sleeping late, of warm beds and private rooms, of servants to fetch and carry. You have none of these things. You have your own 2 feet and a day full of labor ahead. You reach the bathhouse just as the first hints of dawn begin to touch the city. The sky is no longer black, but not yet truly light. A dull, sullen gray, promising neither warmth nor comfort. You pause at the door, taking a deep breath, filling your lungs with air that tastes of smoke and old water. The city is awake now, in its own way. Somewhere, A rooster crows. Somewhere else, a child begins to cry. You listen for a moment, letting the sounds wash over you, grounding yourself in the knowledge that you are still here, still alive, still moving forward, no matter how slow the progress. You push open the door and step inside. The warmth hits you first. Not real warmth, but a heaviness, a thickness to the air that comes from bodies pressed together, from steam rising, from water that has been used and reused 1,000 times. The bathhouse is not yet full, but the day has begun. You set down your bucket, adjust your shawl, and prepare yourself for another day of endless, thankless work. Outside, the city continues without you. Inside, your world shrinks to the size of a single room, a single task, a single breath. This is your life. This is the walk you take every morning, in cold, in darkness, in silence. You do not hope for change. You do not dream of escape. You walk because you must, because this is what survival looks like. One foot in front of the other, from the darkness of your room to the darkness of the bathhouse, day after day, year after year, until something, sickness, violence, chance, puts an end to the walking. But for now, you walk. For now, you endure. The bathhouse at dawn is an odd sort of place. The light that manages to slip through the narrow, high windows is always thin, a pale and sickly thread that does not so much illuminate as expose. Shadows crouch in corners, clinging to the walls like mold. The air is thick already, not warm, but heavy, with the scent of water that has gone too long without changing, the metallic tang of old blood, the sharp tang of urine, the oily trace of sweat that nothing ever quite removes. Your footsteps echo as you cross the flagstones, still slick from last night's scrubbing. It is quiet, but not silent. The bathhouse breathes around you, a drip here, a distant clank of metal, the flutter of a rat vanishing between the stones. You walk into the main room where the others are gathering, pulling their shawls tighter, rubbing at their arms, stamping numb feet. The same faces, the same slouched postures, the same blank stares. No one is happy to be here, but then no one ever is. You nod to Agatha, the oldest of the women, who has worked in the bathhouse since the year the king's third wife died of fever. Agatha never smiles. Her lips are pressed in a thin, permanent line, as if she is forever biting back curses or secrets. Her hands are swollen and twisted, knuckles like pebbles under the skin. She moves slowly, but she moves. She never stops. There is talk that she once had a husband, lost in the river one spring when the water ran high, but no one asks about him. There is nothing to say about loss here. It is as common as grime, as familiar as the ache in your back. Next is Lene, the youngest, though her hair is already streaked with gray. Lene has a kind of grim humor that survives despite everything. She sniffs the air and wrinkles her nose. It smells better than I do, she mutters, grinning, and you manage a smile. This is the closest any of you come to affection. Sometimes Lean tells stories about what she would do if she ever left this place, travel to another town, open a shop, marry a merchant with enough coins to keep her in shoes. No one believes her, least of all Lene, but you all listen. Dreams are as necessary as soap and about as scarce. Elsewhere, two sisters, Marta and Sophie, huddle together, whispering. They are not twins, but they move as if joined by invisible string, always glancing over their shoulders, always wary. Their mother was a washerwoman before them, their grandmother before that. The family trade, handed down like a curse. They have their own language of looks and murmurs, a fortress against the world. You envy them, sometimes, for having each other. You all gather around the central table, if it can be called that. A plank set atop barrels, sticky with years of soap and candle wax. Someone has brought a crust of bread, another a small wedge of cheese gone almost blue. These are shared without ceremony, each tearing off a piece, chewing slowly, eyes downcast. No one asks where the food came from. Sometimes it is best not to know. Hunger is a better companion than a city jail. The conversation, such as it is a catalog of grievances: the cold, the mice, the smell, the latest price of soap, the fresh bruise on Lenie's arm, the persistent cough that keeps Agatha awake at night. Marta complains that the last batch of wood was wet and would not burn. Sophie adds that one of the buckets has split, leaking water all over the floor. You mention that the back door does not close properly, and anyone could slip in at night. There is no solution to any of it, only the shared comfort of knowing that everyone else is just as tired, just as sore, just as unimportant. At some point, the door creaks open and in shuffles Uric, the boy who brings water from the river in the mornings. He is too thin, his knees poking through torn trousers, his eyes large and always watching. He says nothing, just sets his buckets down and waits for a coin or a scrap of bread. You toss him your crust. He nods, wolfing it down in 2 bites. Sometimes you wonder if he will survive the winter. Sometimes you wonder if you will. The bathhouse mistress is late this morning, and for a few minutes you are free. No one wants to begin work until she arrives, so you savor the pause. Agatha rubs her swollen fingers. Line pretends to doze. The sisters argue in whispers. For a moment, you could almost imagine you are somewhere else, not trapped in this cold, damp prison, but gathered in a kitchen, preparing for a festival, waiting for laughter instead of labor. But such thoughts do not last. Reality returns as the outer door bangs open and the mistress strides in, her presence as bracing as a slap. She surveys you all with sharp, assessing eyes. Her voice is clipped, each word landing like a pebble dropped in water. You there, fetch the wood. You mop the floors. You check the water barrels. We are expecting the city guards today. I want this place cleaner than your souls. You scatter, instinctively shrinking before her glare. The spell is broken. Whatever ease you had found in each other's company evaporates, replaced by the dull, familiar grind of duty. The sisters disappear to the back room. Agatha heads for the woodpile. Line begins to scrub at the benches. You grab your own bucket and begin your first chore, the rhythm of labor settling over you like a worn out blanket. As you work, you listen. The bathhouse is full of sounds: water splashing, wood thumping, voices raised in annoyance or complaint. The day is beginning, and it will not end until your bodies are spent, your hands raw, your clothes stained and soaked. Still, you are not alone in your misery. There is a strange comfort in that, a sense that if you all suffer together, the weight might be a little less. Or perhaps not. Perhaps suffering is simply what binds you to this place, what keeps you from slipping away. You catch Lena's eye as she scrubs a stubborn patch of grease. She winks, a small rebellion, and you feel a flicker of something like hope. It will not last, but for now, it is enough. You dip your cloth into the water, wring it out, and begin to clean. The day has started. There is no choice but to meet it, side by side, in the only way you know. The sound of her boots on the stones is always the same, a hollow thud that signals the end of even the smallest hope for respite. She does not rush, because there is no need. Everyone waits for her, whether in fear or dread or some dull mixture of both. The mistress of the bathhouse is not an evil woman, though sometimes you suspect she has long ago surrendered any claim to goodness. She is simply necessary, and in this city, necessity is always sharper than kindness. Her name is Dorothea, though few ever use it. She has the face of someone who has not smiled in a decade: sharp cheekbones, thin lips, eyes like river stones, cold, gray, unyielding. Her hair, once black, now runs to iron gray, scraped back into a knot so tight you imagine it must ache. She wears the same dress every day, dark and heavy, stained at the hem with water, soap, and things better left unnamed. On her belt, a ring of keys jangles softly, and the sound follows you in your dreams. When Dorothea enters, conversation stops. Lean, usually bold, lowers her eyes. Agatha straightens her back as if bracing for a blow. Even the sisters go silent, hands clasped, bodies pressed together. You feel your own spine stiffen, your hands curling around the bucket handle, knuckles whitening. There is no question who commands the bathhouse. In her presence, you are all just parts of a machine, cogs ready to be replaced. Dorothea does not greet anyone. She simply surveys the room, her gaze moving from face to face, pausing only when she finds something out of place: a drip of water on the floor, a streak of dirt on the bench, the dull edge of a poorly cleaned tub. She speaks rarely, but when she does, her words are clipped and final. You fetch the lye. You sweep the steps again. You clean under the benches properly, or I will have you do it twice. Today, her attention falls on you. You have not done anything wrong, no more than usual, but still, her eyes narrow. Did you bring the herbs? She asks, and you nod, producing your bundle from the pocket of your dress. She inspects it with a sniff, then thrusts it back. Lavender again? The smell is wasted on filth like this. Next time, rosemary, and do not let me catch you skimping on the lie. The city guards are coming. You murmur your assent. There is nothing else to do. You know, as she does, that the herbs are a luxury, something the clients will not notice, but the mistress will. It is about appearances, about pretending that things are better than they are, that the bathhouse is clean, that the workers are happy, that the water is ever truly fresh. Dorothea moves on, her keys rattling. She checks the buckets for cracks, tests the benches for splinters, inspects the linen for stains. Each item is accounted for, each flaw noted, nothing escapes her. The first time you worked here, you thought she was cruel for the sake of cruelty. Now you see that she is simply thorough. In a world that punishes carelessness, Dorothea cannot afford to be careless. She turns to the sisters, Marta and Sophie, and asks about yesterday's accounts. Their voices are small, hesitant, as they report how many customers came, how many towels were ruined, how much soap was stolen. Dorothea listens, expression unchanged, then makes a mark in her ledger. The sisters exhale, relieved to have survived another encounter. Agatha is sent to the woodpile to check the fuel for the stove. Lene is ordered to mop the floors again, properly this time, and you are left to empty the slop bucket out back. The job is foul, but you prefer it to Dorothea's gaze. The yard behind the bathhouse is no better than the streets. A patch of mud, a pile of refuse, a broken fence, but at least the air is your own. You dump the bucket, watching the waste mix with the filth already there, then return inside. Dorothea waits by the fire, arms crossed. Do not linger, she warns, and you hurry past, careful not to slip. The others are already at their tasks, heads down, eyes averted. The rhythm of the day has begun, each of you moving according to Dorothea's silent direction, each task assigned, each mistake swiftly noted. You sometimes wonder what Dorothea was before this, what she dreamed of when she was young. Did she once hope for a different life? Or was she always meant to stand guard over the bathhouse, her will keeping the walls from collapsing, her anger scouring the stains that water cannot touch? You have never asked, and she has never told. In this place, the past is as unwelcome as laughter. The city guards, you know, are not coming for the pleasure of a bath. They come for what the bathhouse can provide: privacy, heat, a place to rest without questions. They pay poorly and complain often. If they find fault, they will bring it to Dorothea, who will bring it to you. The threat hangs in the air, unspoken but ever present. Work harder, work faster. Do not let them find a reason to complain. You scrub, you sweep, you fetch water until your arms ache and your back protests. Dorothea glides from room to room, a ghostly overseer, her voice sharp as frost whenever she finds a flaw. Once you dared to answer back, and the memory of her glare is enough to keep your mouth shut now. Pride is a luxury, too, one you cannot afford. Still, there are moments when you almost pity her. You see her watching the others, her face set in lines too deep for her age, her fingers tracing the scar on her cheek, a relic of some long ago accident, or perhaps a fight. When she thinks no one is looking, She sighs, a sound barely audible over the din. For an instant, she seems as weary as the rest of you. But the moment passes, Dorothea straightens, barks an order, and the spell is broken. She is the mistress again, and you are her subjects, bound to the endless work that keeps the bathhouse running and the city's filth at bay. You learn, as all the others do, to keep your head down and your hands moving, to answer when called, and to disappear when dismissed. Dorothea does not praise, but sometimes, if you are lucky, she will look past you instead of through you. That is the closest you will ever come to approval. By midday, the bathhouse is bustling, the water runs low, and Dorothea's patience is thinner than ever. You catch Lene's eye. She rolls hers, mouthing a silent curse. Agatha mutters to herself, too softly for even the mistress to hear. The sisters cling together, their faces pale. The work continues. The day stretches on, and all the while Dorothea's boots echo against the stones, reminding you that there is no end to this, only pauses between commands. You return to your tasks, knowing that even when the sun sets and the last visitor leaves, Dorothea will still be there, her eyes sharp, her hands steady, her voice never soft. She is the law of the bathhouse, as inescapable as the filth you scrub each day. You remind yourself, as you always do, survive today, and you might survive tomorrow. Nothing more can be asked. There is a certain reverence in how the morning begins in the bathhouse, but it is not the reverence of a church, nor the hopeful hush of a new day. It is the grim silence of resignation as you approach the stove, the heart of the entire place, upon which the comfort of dozens and the misery of a few depend. The stove is an ancient beast of iron and brick, its maw always hungry for more wood, more heat, more of your precious time. Your hands, already raw from cold and scrubbing, take up the burden of splitting logs. Wood bought cheap, still damp, as if the merchant had laughed to himself while taking the mistress's coins. There is never enough kindling, and so you use what you can. Splinters, old rags, the dried rushes that line the corners of the bathhouse and always seem to hold more dust than life. You stack them in the firebox with the precision of a surgeon and the care of someone who knows what a failed fire means. A day of complaints, more scolding, a fine or worse. Striking the flint is a task that never grows easier. The stones are worn, the steel rusty, and your thumb already sports a fresh blister from yesterday's effort. You strike and strike, each time cursing under your breath, watching for that brief, desperate flash of spark in the darkness. Sometimes it catches, sometimes it does not. But today the gods, or more likely simple luck, are with you, and the rushes smoke, then flame, then catch the smallest sticks. Soon the stove is awake, sullen and grudging. The bathhouse fills with the scent of wet wood burning, thick, acrid, the kind of smoke that sticks to your lungs and clothes and never leaves. The others know to keep away until the worst has cleared. You crouch by the door, fanning the embers, willing the fire to grow stronger. There is sweat on your brow already, even though the morning air is still sharp with frost. The stove groans and rattles, the iron protesting, the bricks seeping old moisture in slow tears. You fill the first bucket at the pump out back. The water is so cold it bites, and you cannot help but gasp as it splashes over your wrists. There is no warm well here, no magic pipe. You draw water by hand, bucket by bucket, carrying each to the stove to pour into the great copper vats above. Every bath in the house depends on these vats, and in every drop you carry is a drop that will soon be dirtied, sweated out, splashed, and left for you to clean again at the end of the day. Sometimes you count the buckets as you go, but today the number escapes you. It could be 10, it could be 20, it could be 100. Each weighs more than the last, and the handles cut deep into your fingers, right where the blisters never quite heal. You tell yourself it is good for the arms, that you will be strong, but strength here is measured only in how much misery you can carry before you break. When the vats are finally filled, you watch as the water begins to steam. It is never as hot as the customers would like, never as clean as you would wish. Some days, the bathhouse has the luxury of a few handfuls of ash or herbs thrown into the water: lavender, rosemary, mint, whatever the mistress has scavenged, or whatever the market was willing to discard at the end of the day. Today, it is the same limp bunch of lavender you offered up earlier. You crumble it into the vat, breathing in the faint memory of freshness it brings, before being overwhelmed by the heavier stench of smoke and sweat. The fire must be fed throughout the day, and that is your job as well. It is a never ending battle. Too little wood and the water cools, too much, and the room fills with choking smoke. Dorothea checks often, appearing silently beside you to prod the stove with her iron poker, her nose wrinkling, her eyes narrowing. Do not let it go out, she warns, as if you ever could. As the water heats, the first rays of sunlight finally break through the windows, pale, watery, as if the sun itself is reluctant to see what goes on in the bathhouse. The windows are small, high, and so stained with soot that daylight arrives only as a suggestion, never a promise. The fire's glow is warmer, more real, though you know better than to linger too close. Once, early in your employment, you burnt your hand badly. The scar remains, a puckered red line that never quite fades, a reminder that even warmth here comes at a price. The other women have their own tasks: sweeping floors, scrubbing benches, hauling linens to the back to be washed and beaten against the stones. The air is alive with the sound of labor, water sloshing, brushes scraping, voices murmuring complaints or dark humor. The sisters bicker over a broken broom. Line sings under her breath, a melody you do not recognize, but that makes you want to weep. Agatha stirs a bucket of lye, her eyes distant, her movements slow and careful. You are grateful, in your own way, for the ritual of the fire. There is something honest about it, something elemental. It demands your attention, your effort, your time. You cannot rush it. You cannot force it. You can only feed it, tend it, hope it returns enough heat to keep the baths warm and the customers satisfied. In this, There is a strange kind of satisfaction, a tiny piece of control in a world that offers you so little, but the fire does not care for your thoughts. It only wants fuel. You add another log, watching the flames curl and flicker, licking at the wood, devouring everything you offer. You wonder if, one day, the fire will run out of things to burn, if the stove will fall silent, if the bathhouse will go cold forever. It is a comforting thought in its way. For now, though, the water heats, the steam rises, and the day begins in earnest. The first customers will arrive soon, tired, dirty, impatient for comfort. The baths must be ready, the floors must be clean, the fire must burn hot and steady. There is no rest, only the knowledge that if you do not do your job, someone else will, and you will find yourself out on the street, one more shadow among many. You stretch your aching back, flex your fingers, and reach for another bucket of water. The day is long, the work is endless, but for the moment at least, the fire is yours to command. It is not much, but it is enough. The business of making a bathhouse ready for customers is an exercise in futility, an endless cycle of cleaning that never truly conquers the dirt. By the time you finish one corner, another is already spoiled. It is like bailing out a sinking boat with a cracked cup, and yet you do it every day because to stop would be worse. Your first task is always the benches. The wood is old, soaked with decades of sweat and water and whatever else comes off the bodies of the city's folk. Some mornings you think you can see the stains moving, breeding quietly in the damp, but you know better than to say such things aloud. Superstition is for people who have time to worry about curses. Here, you just worry about whether the splinters will work their way into your hands again. You kneel with your rag and your bucket of tepid, soapy water. If you are lucky, there is some soap left. You scrub the benches with the force of someone who might be able to change her future if only she can make them shine. But nothing ever shines here. You work the rag in circles, up and down, back and forth. The wood fights you, soaking up water faster than you can apply it, spitting it back out again in little muddy rivulets. Your arms ache before you are halfway done, but the thought of Dorothea's scowl keeps you going. Around you, the others are hard at work. Agatha drags her stiff body from one end of the room to the other, wielding her mop like a weapon. The sisters Marta and Sophie have split the duty of sweeping and dusting, and they argue in whispers as they go about who did more yesterday, about whose turn it is to wash the grimy windows. Lene, ever practical, wrings out towels and checks the shelves for clean linen, muttering numbers under her breath. No one is idle, no one dares. You move to the floors, splashing water and lye from your bucket. The stones are uneven, cracked, and slick with something that never really dries. The city's filth is ground into every crevice, and you imagine that if you ever lifted a flagstone, you would find a black river of grease and old soap winding beneath. Once, when you were new, you tried to clean the floor with extra care. You scrubbed until your knuckles bled, but by midday it was as dirty as ever, and Dorothea only nodded in grim satisfaction. That is the way of things, she told you. There is always more dirt. Our job is not to win, but to fight. The walls fare no better. They sweat with condensation from the warm baths and cold air, growing slick and green with moss in the corners. You wipe at them half heartedly, knowing that no one will notice if you skip a spot. But someone, maybe one of the city guards, maybe the mistress herself, always seems to find the places you have missed. So you scrub, and the moss returns, as constant as the sunrise. You empty your bucket in the gutter behind the house, watching the dirty water swirl into the street where it joins all the other wastes of the city. For a moment, you envy it, this freedom to run away, to disappear, to mix with the rain and vanish into the earth. But you are not water, you are a body, and bodies must stay and labor. The linen room is next. You haul bundles of towels and sheets to the back, sorting the least filthy from the worst. Clean is a relative term here. The water used to wash them is rarely fresh, and the soap is stretched thin as broth. Some stains are older than you are. You fold what you can salvage and stack the rest in a heap for Agatha to boil later, her face set in concentration as she lifts each heavy pot onto the fire. The steam stings your eyes, and for a moment you see nothing at all, just a white cloud in the shadows of moving arms. The smell in the linen room is its own punishment, damp, sour, sharp, with a faint sweet rot that never quite leaves your hair. Some days you try to breathe through your mouth, but then the taste settles on your tongue and you gag. So you learn to endure. You all do. The sisters work beside you, silent for once, folding and stacking, their faces pale and drawn. Once, a customer accused you of stealing his handkerchief. Dorothea made you empty your pockets, and when nothing was found, the man only sneered and tossed a coin at your feet. For your trouble, he said, as if it was a favor. You kept the coin, of course. Even insults are useful if they come with money attached. After the linen, you move on to the buckets and bowls used for washing. These are lined up along the wall, each one grimier than the last. You dunk them in soapy water, scrubbing at the rims and handles, knowing they will be just as dirty by evening. Some of the bowls are chipped, the metal rough. You run your finger along a crack, thinking of all the hands that have held this bowl, all the faces reflected in its thin, oily surface. You do not recognize your own face anymore, too tired, too old, too changed by work and worry. The morning passes in this way, a blur of cleaning and fetching and lifting and scouring. Your hands are red, your knees ache, your back is tight as a drum. At times, the only thing that keeps you moving is the knowledge that to stop is to fall behind, and to fall behind is to risk Dorothea's anger, or worse, to be noticed by the customers who are beginning to gather at the door. They will want their baths hot and clean, their towels white and soft, their floors dry and their benches shining. You do what you can, knowing it will never be enough, knowing that no matter how hard you scrub, the bathhouse will always be a little dirty, a little worn, a little too much like the city that surrounds it. You learn to live with that, just as you learn to live with the ache in your bones and the grit under your nails. When the bell rings for the doors to open, you take a moment, just one, leaning against the wall, eyes closed, breathing the mingled scents of lye, steam, and sweat. The work is only beginning, but the hardest part is done. You have made the bathhouse ready, or as ready as it will ever be. Then you pick up your bucket and your rag, wipe your hands on your apron, and prepare to greet the first wave of customers with a tired, practiced smile. The day stretches ahead, long and unending, but you have survived the morning. Sometimes that is all you can ask. The bell has barely stopped echoing when the first customers arrive. They do not so much enter the bathhouse as fill it, their voices carrying ahead of them like an advancing army. These are the city craftsmen, tanners, cobblers, coopers, and their apprentices, men who spend their days stooped over benches, hands stained with glue or dye, or something worse, faces set in the lines of unending work. They come in small groups, elbowing each other, laughing too loud for the hour, their jokes already tinged with the bitterness of long days and short wages. You recognize them all. They have been coming here for as long as you have been working, and most likely long before. Their faces are as familiar to you as your own hands. The broad chested cobbler with his missing front tooth, the barrel maker whose right ear was chewed off in a brawl, the boy with the nervous twitch who always tries to sneak in without paying. Some offer you a nod, most do not. You are part of the background, as invisible as the water in the vats or the steam that clings to every surface. Their presence changes the air in the room, makes it heavier, louder, rougher. They strip off their outer layers with careless energy, slinging boots and tunics over benches, flinging caps into corners. The floor, which you just scrubbed, is instantly muddied by their boots. There is no point in protesting, so you do not. Once, a new girl tried to scold a customer for tracking in manure. She left before the week was out, a lesson to all who might imagine they can hold the city's filth at bay with nothing but a broom and good intentions. You gather up discarded clothing, hanging it on pegs, folding what you can, always careful not to mix up whose is whose. An argument over a lost cap or a misplaced belt can turn ugly in seconds. More than once, you have been blamed for a missing button or a torn cuff, as if you had nothing better to do than sabotage their sorry rags. Still, you keep your head down and your hands busy, moving quietly among the crowd. The men bark their orders at you, as if you are another fixture, like the stove or the mop. Hotter water, girl. Bring me another bowl. What is this? Ice for a bath? Some try to joke, calling you duckling or lass, but the words are barbed, designed to remind you that you are here to serve. You smile, or at least you show your teeth, and hurry to do as asked. A mistake here is not just a scolding from Dorothea. It is the risk of a slap, a shove, a bruise that will have to be explained later. You watch as they settle into their routines. Some sink into the largest tub, feet splayed, arms dangling, sighing with exaggerated relief as the hot water soaks into skin toughened by years of labor. Others gather in clusters, scrubbing each other's backs, gossiping about city matters, whose apprentice ran away, who is late with the rent, who has been seen slipping down the alley with a baker's daughter. Their words fill the room, a river of talk that swirls around you without ever including you. There is always laughter, but it is never gentle. They mock each other for calloused hands, crooked noses, bald spots. Sometimes the laughter is a shield, sometimes it is a weapon. You know to stay out of the way when their jokes turn sharp, when the old rivalries surface, when last night's beer still churns in their bellies. You have seen fights start over nothing, a careless word, a splash of water, and you have learned to be quick, to slip away before anyone decides that a bathhouse worker is a safe target for their anger. You move from tub to tub, carrying buckets, fetching soap, gathering up the piles of clothes that seem to multiply while your back is turned. Occasionally, a coin will be tossed your way, a thank you, or more often, a challenge to see if you will stoop to pick it up. You do, every time. Pride is something you gave up before your second week in this place, traded for survival and a few coppers extra. The smell in the room is an alchemy all its own. Sweat, wood smoke, wet wool, old soap, and the indefinable tang of dozens of bodies giving up a week's worth of grime. You are used to it now, so much so that when you leave the bathhouse at night, the air outside seems empty, sterile, almost frightening in its lack of substance. Here, surrounded by steam and noise, you feel, if not safe, then at least grounded in something real, something tangible. The dirt is honest. It does not pretend. Sometimes one of the men will try to flirt, if you can call it that. A wink, a coarse joke, a hand that lingers too long on your arm as you pass. You have learned to brush them off gently, to laugh in a way that discourages, to move away quickly, but not so quickly as to invite insult. There are rules here, and you know them all, though no one had ever wrote them down. You do not give offense, but you do not encourage hope either. You are a servant, not an invitation. The apprentices are the worst, always trying to prove themselves to the older men, always eager to show they are not afraid to cross lines. They trip each other, shout, splash water everywhere. You avoid their eyes. Do not give them a reason to single you out. Once, an apprentice snatched your scarf and refused to return it. It took 2 weeks to save enough to buy another, and your neck was raw from the cold. Since then, you keep your things close and your words closer. Now and then, a craftsman will remember some small kindness from the week before, a towel fetched quickly, a basin of hot water brought without asking, and will offer you a slice of bread, a half-rotten apple, or, on rare occasions, a coin slipped into your palm with something like gratitude in his eyes. You take what you are given and say nothing. You know better than to mistake a moment's kindness for friendship. Tomorrow, they may not remember you at all. The hours with the craftsman pass in a kind of noisy blur. Their demands never end, and neither does your work. You refill the vats, gather the used towels, mop the puddles on the floor before someone slips and blames you for it. All the while, Dorothea moves among you, her presence sharp and silent. She knows every customer by name and every trick by heart. She sees the glances, hears the jokes, notices the coins that vanish from the table. Nothing escapes her notice, and you wonder, as you always do, whether she despises the customers more than she despises her own workers. At last, the craftsmen begin to leave, pulling on their damp shirts and worn boots, grumbling about the cold, the price, the lack of fresh towels. Some toss a final insult or joke over their shoulder. Others simply disappear, leaving behind only muddy footprints, the stale ghost of their laughter, and more work for you. You watch them go, knowing there will be no thanks, no relief, only the next wave of customers, the next layer of dirt, the next round of endless, thankless labor. You catch your breath, gather up the towels, and start the work of making the bathhouse ready all over again. There is no reward, only routine. You clean because you must. You endure because there is nothing else to do. The morning with the craftsman is over. The day is just beginning. After the craftsmen depart, somewhat cleaner, always louder, their laughter and footsteps lingering in the damp air, you are left to deal with the aftermath. The room is a battlefield, and your next task is to clear away the debris. It is a ritual as old as the bathhouse itself, and no less sacred for its filth. The bowls and cups used by the customers are stacked high in the corner. They are chipped, cracked, stained with years of use and misuse. Each one is a relic, passed down from worker to worker, cleaned and dirtied and cleaned again until they are as much a part of the bathhouse as the bricks in the wall. Some are wood, warped from soaking, their rims softened to fuzz. Others are rough clay, heavy and cold, the glaze long worn away, so the surface feels like sandpaper against your fingers. You gather them up, piece by piece, careful not to drop any. Even the smallest breakage will earn a scowl from Dorothea, and, more importantly, another subtraction from your pitiful wages. You remember the sting of it, the sharp, dismissive click of her tongue, the way she marks your debt in the little book she keeps tucked into her apron, as if every mistake is a tally on your soul. You carry the stack to the washing tub. The water is tepid at best, already cloudy from previous scrubbings, but it is all you have. Fresh water is precious. Waste is a sin. The soap is a thin, bitter sliver, slick and useless, but you rub it between your hands, working it into a foam that vanishes almost instantly. You scrub each cup, each bowl, each spoon, as if it is the only thing standing between you and ruin. There is an art to cleaning what cannot be truly cleaned. You work the rag around the rim, along the bottom, into every crack and chip. You scrape away the crusted remnants of someone's meal, porridge mostly, or stewed beans, the staples of those who can afford to eat before coming here. Sometimes you find a shred of meat or a sliver of onion, a reminder that someone, somewhere, has enough to spare. More often, you find only grease, congealed into a waxy ring around the edge. The handles of the spoons are blackened from years of fingers, and the bowls are always gritty, no matter how long you scrub. When you finish one, you stack it on the counter to dry, though dry is another fiction in this place. The steam never quite leaves, and within moments, everything is clammy again, the moisture seeping into your sleeves, your skin, your bones. There is also the business of the bathing tools, the scrapers and brushes and ladles that the customers use and then discard without a thought. The wooden scrapers are worn smooth at the edges, some splintering, some stained disk with old blood or oil. The brushes, once fine and bristling, now have bristles worn down to stubs or missing altogether. You clean these too, dipping them in the soapy water, running your fingers along the handles to clear away the grime. Sometimes you find hairs tangled in the brushes, black or brown or gray, and you pluck them out with a shudder, dropping them into the waste bucket. Every so often, Dorothea appears, inspecting your progress. Her eyes are sharp, her hands folded. She does not speak, but you feel the weight of her gaze. If she finds a speck of grease or a streak of grime, she will simply set the offending dish aside with a sigh, and you know you must wash it again, twice as hard. There is no end to it, but you do not complain. Complaining does nothing except make the job last longer. The other women have their own chores, but sometimes Line comes to help you. She chatters as she works, her voice low and quick, sharing gossip she overheard from the craftsmen or tales from the street. Her words are a balm, a brief distraction from the monotony of scrubbing. Did you see the way the cooper looked at Dorothea? I think he's more afraid of her than of falling in the vat, she says, grinning. You smile, though it feels foreign on your lips. You both fall into a rhythm, one washing, one rinsing, stacking bowls and cups and spoons in lopsided towers. It is as close to teamwork as you get here. For a moment, it feels almost normal, almost bearable, but the pile never seems to shrink. No matter how many dishes you clean, more appear, as if conjured by some vengeful spirit of domestic drudgery. When the customers are many, there are never enough clean bowls. Sometimes you must scrub one and hand it back immediately, still warm from your own hands, the old grease only faintly masked by soap. No one complains. They know as well as you that this is as good as it gets. The illusion of cleanliness is enough for everyone involved. The washing tub itself is a small hell. By midday, the water is brown and thick with scum, the bottom slick with sediment. You dread the moment when you must empty it and refill it, knowing your hands will be numb from the cold, the new water as icy as a grave. Sometimes you wonder if your skin will ever feel clean again. The cracks along your knuckles are lined with dirt, and no amount of washing seems to make them smooth. The worst of all are the communal cups, the ones everyone uses and no one claims. They pass from hand to hand, from mouth to mouth, their rims slick and worn, the metal dented from years of being dropped and banged against stone. You scrub them as best you can, but you have seen what lives in the cracks, what festers in the corners. You would never drink from them, not if you had any choice, but you have seen customers do so without a thought, as if illness is only something that happens to other people. When the pile is finally gone, or at least hidden out of sight, you wipe your hands on your apron and look around the room. The air is still thick, still damp, still heavy with the scent of bodies and smoke and something sour beneath it all. Your hands ache, your back is stiff, and your mind feels slow and distant. You are tired, though the day is barely half over. Lene nudges you. Break? She asks, and you shake your head. There is always more to do. The floor is slick. The benches are dirty. The towels must be wrung and hung. There is no end to it, only the small, bitter satisfaction of having survived one task, of having beaten back the tide for a few more minutes. You gather the clean bowls and return them to their shelf, knowing they will be dirty again before the hour is out. You take a moment to stretch your fingers, to shake out your arms, to breathe. Then you pick up the next task, whatever it may be, and begin again. This is the rhythm of the bathhouse: work, wash, repeat. Cleanliness is the story you tell the customers, a lie you live with for as long as you must. The afternoon is approaching, and with it, a new wave of customers. There is no rest, only the endless churn of labor. You steel yourself, gather your things, and prepare to face the next round. There is a particular silence that falls when the city guard enters the bathhouse. It is not a restful silence, nor the hush of relief at the end of a long task. It is the silence of breath held tight, of eyes lowered and muscles braced. You know it well, as do the other women, for the guards have a power here that few else possess. They move through the streets with impunity, their authority heavy and unquestioned, and when they come to the bathhouse, it is rarely just to bathe. You hear them before you see them: heavy boots on the flagstones outside, voices raised in casual bravado, laughter with an edge that makes your skin crawl. The door swings open without ceremony, admitting a trio in mismatched uniforms, their leather jerkins battered, their tabards stained and faded. Their faces are hard, eyes sharp and restless, scanning the room as if searching for some hidden offense. Dorothea straightens at once, her spine rigid, her voice smooth as she greets them. "Good day, officers. The water is hot. We are well prepared for your visit." She says it as if it is a compliment, as if the guard is a rare and honored guest, though everyone knows the truth. When the guard comes, it is often because they want something: privacy, favors, or just the small satisfaction of being obeyed without question. The men fan out, tossing their cloaks on the benches, their swords clattering against the wood. One, broad, red-faced, his breath sour with ale, immediately demands the largest tub, and not so much lie in the water this time, he says, fixing you with a stare as if daring you to disagree. You nod, heart pounding, and rush to fill the tub with fresh, hot water. There is no pleasing him, but displeasing him is far worse. Another guard, thin and watchful, leans against the wall, arms crossed, eyes following every movement in the room. You avoid his gaze, but you feel it all the same, prickling at your neck as you fetch towels and ladle water into the basin. The third, a younger man, trying to grow a beard and failing, flirts with Lean, calling her little bird and tugging at her apron strings. She laughs, a brittle sound, keeping just out of his reach. You have seen her deal with worse, but the tension in her jaw betrays her nerves. The presence of the guard changes everything. The other customers go quiet, shrinking into the corners, avoiding attention. The sisters scuttle about, collecting soiled towels, their faces blank. Agatha lingers near the stove, hands wrapped tight around the poker, as if seeking comfort in its weight. Even Dorothea seems smaller, her authority challenged by men who answer to no one but themselves. As you work, you listen. The guards trade stories of the night before, how many drunks they dragged from the gutters, how many fines they collected, how one man tried to bribe them with a string of sausages and ended up in the stocks anyway. Their voices are loud, meant to be overheard, meant to remind everyone that they are not to be crossed. Sometimes the guards come for other reasons. You have seen them searching the corners, peering behind curtains, asking questions about who was here and when. Once, they dragged out a man accused of theft, his face already bruised, his cries ignored. Another time, they came in pursuit of a woman, her name unknown to you, her story forgotten as soon as she disappeared into the cold. You have learned to offer no information, to keep your mouth shut and your eyes lowered. Today, their mood is light enough, but there is always an undercurrent of danger. The broad man grumbles about the soap, sloshing water onto the floor. Not worth what we pay this place, he complains, though you know the guard pays little or nothing at all. Dorothea hovers, ready with apologies and reassurances. We do our best, officer. The bathhouse is at your service. She offers her best linen towel, her last bit of perfumed oil. The guard takes it without thanks. The thin guard, meanwhile, keeps watch. He asks after the owner, Dorothea herself, though he pretends not to know, and about the day's visitors. Many strangers? He asks, voice mild, but eyes sharp. Anyone causing trouble? Dorothea shakes her head, her voice flat. All are regulars. The day has been quiet. He nods, unconvinced, but lets the matter drop. You try to make yourself smaller, quieter. The work is the same. Fill the tub, fetch more water, wring out towels, but everything feels heavier. You are aware of every mistake, every drop spilled, every corner missed in your haste. The guard is a presence you cannot ignore, even as you try to blend into the walls. Line passes you on her way to the storeroom, murmuring, "Keep your head down. They are worse than usual today." You nod, grateful for the warning, and turn your attention to the next task, scrubbing the benches near the stove, careful not to get in Agatha's way. The old woman gives you a look, a silent message: stay close, stay safe. The third guard, the young one, finally tires of teasing Lane and slouches into the tub with a theatrical sigh. No one treats us well in this city, he moans, closing his eyes. At least here we get a bit of warmth. The others laugh, though it is not a pleasant sound. You sense a challenge in it, a reminder that for now they are in control. After what seems like hours, the guards finish their baths. They dress slowly, taking their time, dropping wet towels on the floor for you to pick up. The broad man tosses you a copper, as if to remind you that your labor is worth less than the dirt beneath his boots. The thin one nods to Dorothea, murmuring something you do not catch. The young guard leaves last, pausing to wink at Lean, who rolls her eyes behind his back. As they go, the bathhouse breathes again. The customers who lingered in the corners begin to move, voices rising, the tension easing just a little. Dorothea closes the door after the guards, locking it tight. She stands for a moment, head bowed, shoulders hunched. Then she straightens, turning to you all. Back to work, she says, her voice hard but shaky. There is still much to do. You nod and bend to the task, your hands moving automatically, your mind distant. The fear lingers, an ache beneath your skin. The city guard is gone, but their shadow remains, long and cold and impossible to shake. You pick up the wet towels, wring them out over the bucket, and wonder how long before they return. In the bathhouse, nothing is ever truly safe or truly clean. You work in silence, letting the routine pull you back to yourself. There is always more to do. The afternoon presses on. Outside, the city moves as it always does, indifferent to the lives inside these walls. You clean, you endure, and you wait for whatever comes next. The sound that marks the midday pause is not a bell or a whistle, but a silence, a lull that settles, heavy and awkward, over the bathhouse. For a handful of minutes, there are no customers at the door, no shouted demands for hotter water, cleaner towels, more soap. The noise fades. You realize you have been clenching your jaw all morning, and now you let it loosen. Your shoulders sag. The air is thick with steam and the smell of damp wool, but for a moment it is almost bearable. Dorothea announces the break with a wordless gesture, her hand slicing through the air. You and the others exchange glances. There is nothing festive in this meal, nothing to anticipate, only the hope that today's bread is not too stale or the water not too foul. Agatha is already reaching for the sack she keeps tucked behind the stove, its contents a secret from everyone but herself. The meal is always the same, and always too little. Today, you are fortunate enough to have a crust of black bread. You break it into pieces, turning the hard edge over in your mouth, letting the saliva soften it enough to swallow. There is a little cheese, brittle with age, and a shriveled apple that Lena shares without a word. The apple is soft and browning inside, but its sweetness is a sharp relief. You eat it slowly, savoring the rare treat, knowing there will be nothing else until dusk. Water is poured from a clay jug into chipped cups. The taste is earthy, touched by whatever has seeped through the city's pipes and wells. You have learned not to think about what is in it. You drink anyway, your throat rough with the morning's smoke and lie. Lena jokes that the water will put hair on your chest, and for a moment, the others manage a weak laugh. The break is too brief to be restful, but for these minutes, you see the women as themselves, not just as hands and feet in service to dirt and men. Agatha leans back, eyes closed, her hands curled in her lap. You remember she once had a family, though she never speaks of them. Marta and Sophie huddle together, whispering in their own language, their foreheads touching as they share some private grief or hope. Lena, always restless, paces at the edge of the room, peeling splinters from a bench and flicking them into the fire. You take a moment to sit in the corner, pulling your shawl around your shoulders, feeling the bones of your spine press against the wall. The silence is a relief, but it is not peace. You are too aware of the weight in your stomach, a dull, insistent ache that is never satisfied. You learned long ago to eat slowly, to let the smallest meal last as long as possible. Hunger is a companion now, predictable as the rising sun. Outside, the world continues without you. You hear the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer, the call of the market vendors, the lowing of cattle driven through the muddy streets. The city is a beast that never stops moving, its hunger matched only by your own. For a moment, you wonder what it would be like to be outside at this hour, walking freely, unburdened by chores and rules and the eyes of the mistress. The thought is so strange you almost laugh. Dorothea sits a little apart from the rest of you, her back straight, her eyes fixed on some distant point. She does not eat, not that you see. Sometimes you think she survives on bitterness alone, sustained by her authority and the knowledge that she is, for now, above your station. You wonder if she is ever hungry, if the ache gnaws at her belly, or if she has learned to ignore it as she ignores so much else. The break is over as soon as it begins. Dorothea stands, dusting crumbs from her skirt, and the spell is broken. Back to work, she says, and the words are as heavy as stones. You rise, slow and stiff, gathering up the scraps, brushing crumbs from your lap. There is no time to linger, no room for idleness. The city will not wait for you to finish your meal. The afternoon chores await, the cleaning, the scrubbing, the endless carrying of buckets. But before you return to the grind, you take a moment to look at the others. There is something in their faces, some trace of humor or defiance that has not yet been washed away. You cling to it just for a heartbeat before the routine swallows you once more. You rinse your hands in a bucket of cold water, wiping them dry on your apron. The bread sits heavy in your stomach, not enough to satisfy, but enough to keep you standing. Your mouth is dry, your body weary, but there is work to be done. As you step back into the main room, you hear voices at the door, more customers, more demands, more dirt. The brief respite of the midday meal is already fading, replaced by the weight of what is to come. The afternoon stretches ahead, unbroken, and you know it will be long before you eat again. You steel yourself, gather your tools, and return to work as you always do. There is no choice, only endurance. Hunger is a fact, as much a part of your day as water or dirt or the hard words of the mistress. This is what passes for a break in the bathhouse. A few stolen moments, a bite of bread, a swallow of water, and the knowledge that survival is the only reward. You step back into the steam, the noise, the endless labor, and the world outside the bathhouse closes over you once more. If the morning belongs to the craftsman, then the afternoon is the kingdom of the merchants. You know their approach by the sound of their boots. Sturdy, well made, souls rarely worn down by walking the way yours are. Their voices carry before them, bright and nasal, thick with the certainty that comes from never having known real hunger. When the bell rings for the afternoon hours, you brace yourself for their arrival, a different sort of ordeal than the morning's mud and noise. The merchants and traders come in clusters, always a little too loud, always speaking just a little too much about themselves. They complain about the markets, about the price of salt, the unreliability of porters, the weather that ruins their wares. They are cleaner than the craftsmen, but no less demanding. Their hands are softer, but their words are sharper, and their eyes wander over the bathhouse as if deciding what to buy and what to discard. They carry their wealth on their bodies, fur trimmed collars, rings on every finger, cloaks that trail across the floor and collect the grime you have just finished scrubbing away. They expect to be waited on, bowed to, flattered, deferred to. When you greet them, you are careful to use the proper words, to smile in the right way, to avoid their gaze but not appear insolent. One wrong move, and the complaint will make its way to Dorothea, and from Dorothea straight to your meager wages. You take their cloaks and hang them on pegs, brushing away invisible dust, pretending not to notice the stains beneath the finery. They talk among themselves, sometimes lowering their voices when they think you are not listening, but you hear everything. Who is in debt to whom? Who bribed which official? Who had an argument with whose wife in the street? These secrets mean nothing to you, but you store them anyway. Sometimes knowledge is as useful as coin. The merchants are picky. They want their water just so, not too hot, girl, and not too cold. And they want clean towels, fresh soap, and a promise that no one will disturb them. One insists on a private tub, then spends half an hour shouting about the draft from the window. Another berates you for the lack of perfume, demanding scented oil for his hair. You smile, you fetch, you serve, and you seethe beneath your skin. Their children are worse. Small boys in velvet caps race up and down the aisles, shrieking, splashing water onto the clean floors, chasing each other around the vats, while their mothers gossip in the corner, oblivious or indifferent to the chaos. A little girl with golden braids spills a bowl of water, then points at you and declares, "She did it." You bite your tongue. The mother glances at you and sneers. "Try to be more careful," she says, as if you were the child. For the merchants, the bathhouse is another place to display their power. They talk loudly about their business, their plans, their cleverness in outwitting rivals. They joke about the craftsman's muddy boots and the guard's foul tempers, never suspecting that the same city that serves them so well will turn on them as quickly as it turns on you. You wish as sometimes for the blunt honesty of the craftsman, the rough humor that leaves no room for pretense. The merchants tip rarely and only when others are watching. A copper dropped into your palm with a wink, a silver coin given to Dorothea as if she alone deserves reward. They like to remind you of their generosity, as if you should thank them for the privilege of fetching their towels and mopping up after their children. Still, you take the coins. Hunger is never far, and pride is a luxury you cannot afford. They stay longer than the craftsmen, lingering in the steam, discussing contracts and rumors, sending you on errands for more hot water or sweetened wine. One man, flush with drink and victory at the market, tries to pull you into his lap as you hand him a towel. You twist away, careful to keep your tone respectful, but the look he gives you promises trouble. Dorothea sees, and for once she intervenes, her words cold as ice. She is not for sale. You have what you paid for. Be grateful. For a moment, you are grateful for Dorothea's presence, for the sharp edge of her authority. The merchant scowls but says nothing more. Later, he will forget you entirely. That is the best you can hope for. The bathhouse is noisier now, filled with voices that rise and fall in argument and laughter. The air grows thick with steam, the smell of perfumed oil mixing with the old, familiar scents of lye and sweat. You work quickly, keeping out of the way, cleaning where you can, answering requests, and smoothing over complaints. It is a dance you know by heart. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, a constant negotiation between service and self preservation. The other women keep to their routines. Agatha mutters curses beneath her breath as she scrubs the benches. Marta and Sophie slip in and out of the linen room, folding towels, avoiding notice. Lene, ever the survivor, jokes with the children, distracting them long enough for you to mop the floor beneath their feet. You are all a team, in your way, bound together by the shared indignity of labor. Outside, the light begins to shift, the afternoon sun slanting through the dirty windows. The merchants' voices grow louder, then fade as they gather their things and prepare to leave. Cloaks are snatched from pegs, coins are counted, goodbyes are exchanged with more flourish than feeling. As they go, the bathhouse seems to exhale, the pressure lifting for a moment before the next wave arrives. You gather the towels, now sodden and stained, and carry them to the back room. Your arms ache from the weight, your hands raw from the endless scrubbing. The floor is dirty again, the benches smeared with oil and water, but you do not stop. There is always more to do, always another customer waiting, always another hour to endure. You glance at the coins in your apron, a few coppers, the sum total of your afternoon's labor. It is not enough, but it is something. You tuck them away, already planning how they will stretch. A little bread, maybe a candle, perhaps a ribbon if you can spare the expense. As the sun begins to sink and the shadows lengthen across the floor, you steel yourself for the evening. The hardest hours are still to come. For now, you take a deep breath, square your shoulders, and return to the work that never ends. The merchants are gone, but their presence lingers, a memory of noise and privilege, a reminder that in this city, power is always on display, and you are always, always beneath it. If there is any work in the bathhouse that can break a spirit, it is the washing of linen. It is not glamorous. It is not even particularly visible, at least to the customers who only ever notice the towels when they are missing or still wet. For you, though, It is the unending center of the job, a task that fills your hands and gnaws at your back long after the rest of the day is done. The linen room is not a room at all, not really. It is a corner at the back, half exposed to the alley, with walls that sweat in the cold and sag in the rain. There are no windows, only a hole in the wall for smoke and a door that never quite shuts. The floor is always slick, and the air is thick with the mingled scent of old soap, mildew, and something sweeter, sharper, rotting in the pile where wet towels wait their turn. You start with the towels. Some are little more than rags, so worn they are transparent in the sun, if you ever had time to hang them there. Others still carry the traces of their first owner's monogram, so faint you can barely tell if it was a bird, a leaf, or just a careless scribble. All of them are heavy, wet, cold, reeking of the bodies they have served. It is said that no two towels are ever alike, but after your first month here, they all look the same, stained, frayed, limp, and impossibly heavy. The water for washing comes from the big barrel at the back, filled in the morning and left to chill. There is never enough hot water for the linen, not with the customers demanding more for themselves. So you work with what you have, lukewarm at best, ice cold at worst. You plunge your arms in up to the elbows, feeling the cold bite through your skin. Your fingers ache almost instantly. You learn to keep moving, scrubbing and wringing, not thinking about what the stains might be. Soap is rationed, stretched as thin as patience. You use it sparingly, rubbing the bar against the worst spots, working up whatever foam you can, then scrubbing at the cloth until your knuckles burn. Some stains yield to your efforts, blood, sweat, oil, but others cling like curses. You can recognize the signs of a stubborn stain, the black, oily smudge from a tanner's hands, the red-brown mark that never quite comes out. You scrub until you are sure the fabric will tear, then you scrub a little more. The linen must be clean, at least enough for Dorothea's approval. Agatha joins you, moving slower than you, but just as relentless. Her arms are thin but strong, the sinews showing beneath the skin. She does not talk as she works. Sometimes she hums, the tune old and sad, barely more than a vibration in her chest. You work in silence beside her, the rhythm of scrubbing and rinsing and wringing as familiar as your own heartbeat. Once the towels are as clean as they will ever be, you wring them out. This is the hardest part, twisting the heavy, sodden cloth until the water runs in rivulets down your arms and splashes onto your apron. Your wrists ache, your shoulders burn, but you keep going. There are always more towels to come, and always fewer hands to do the work. After the towels come the sheets. They are bigger, coarser, full of the marks of 100 restless nights and sweaty bodies. Some are stained yellow, others patched with cloth so different they look like patchwork quilts. You beat them against the stones outside, trying to drive the dirt free. The noise is satisfying, even if the results are not. You imagine the stains as the stubborn spirits of the city itself, clinging to the fabric just as poverty clings to you. Sometimes the wind will catch a sheet and whip it around your face, stinging your eyes with the sour scent of old sweat and lye. You spit out a curse, but there is no one to hear it but the rats, who watch from their holes with bright, amused eyes. You keep working, wringing, beating, scrubbing, rinsing. There is no end, only a pile that shifts, but never truly grows smaller. The linen that passes your inspection is hung to dry on ropes behind the bathhouse, where the sun can sometimes reach if the day is clear. More often than not, it hangs in the shade, gathering the smell of wood smoke, of damp earth, of other people's lives. Sometimes rain will come before the towels are dry, and you will have to start all over, the work doubled by the city's indifference to your needs. Occasionally, Dorothea will come to inspect the results. She lifts a towel, sniffs at it, tugs at the corners. If she finds a stain, she presses it into your hands with a look that says everything. Do it again. You nod, biting down the urge to protest and start over. There is no use arguing. The linen must be clean, whatever that means to her. The sisters, Marta and Sophie, help with folding and stacking, their hands red and raw. They work quickly, quietly, sometimes exchanging a word in their private language. You envy them their closeness. You have no sister, only the rhythm of the bathhouse and the endless demand for labor. By late afternoon, your back is stiff, your hands swollen, and your patience as thin as the soap you have left. The laundry is never finished. No matter how hard you work, there will always be another pile, another stain, another round of scrubbing. It is the nature of the place, and you have learned not to expect any other result. You stand in the linen room, breathing in the mingled scents of lye, mold, and tired satisfaction. You wipe your hands on your apron, flex your fingers, and for a moment, allow yourself to imagine a world where towels are always clean, where linen dries in the sun, where work ends before your body breaks. Then you laugh, soft and bitter, and return to the bathhouse, the next task already calling. The day is not yet done. There are hours still to go, but the linen is as clean as it will ever be, and for now, that is enough. Cleanliness in the bathhouse is a myth you chase but never catch. The customers expect it, the mistress demands it, and the city mocks it with every hour that passes. The true rulers here are not Dorothea, or the merchants, or the guards. They are the rats and the insects, the small, unkillable armies that move in as soon as your back is turned. The rats come at night, mostly, but some are bold enough to scurry across the floor in broad daylight, darting between shadows, their sleek bodies as silent as secrets. You have learned to watch for the twitch of a whisker beneath the bench, the gleam of a black eye in the corner. At first, their presence horrified you. Now, you hardly notice unless they get too close to the food or the linen or your own meager possessions. When you hear them gnawing through a sack or see a line of droppings on the floor, you sigh, fetch a broom, and do battle. Sometimes you win. A rat cornered and driven out into the alley, a nest in the woodpile scattered with a few well-aimed kicks. More often, you simply delay their advance. The bathhouse is full of holes and hiding places, and the rats know them all. They are fat on your crumbs and the scraps the customers leave behind. And if you close up one entrance, they find another. Once you discovered a rat tangled in a towel, its teeth sunk deep into the cloth, its eyes wild. You killed it with a brick, your heart hammering with fear and fury. Afterward, you washed your hands in lye, scrubbing until the skin cracked. The blood came out of the towel, mostly, but you never forgot the feeling. The insects are worse. Fleas and lice are constant companions, living in the cracks of the benches, the seams of your dress, the tangles of your hair. There are times when you feel them crawling across your scalp, biting at your ankles as you work. You scratch without thinking, leaving red trails on your skin. The customers bring their own colonies with them. Sometimes you see them too, black specks hopping from one head to another as if they know this place belongs to them. Then there are the bed bugs, lurking in every crevice, feasting at night when you finally collapse on your pallet. You wake to red welts, to the sickly sweet smell of their bodies crushed between the sheets. No amount of washing drives them out. The linen is boiled, the straw changed, the boards scrubbed, but the bugs return, as inevitable as the sunrise. Flies swarm in the summer, black clouds that settle on any scrap of food, any damp patch on the floor. You wave them away, but your hands are too slow, your will too weak to fight them all. Sometimes you find maggots in the drain, wriggling in the dark, and you choke down bile as you flush them out with boiling water and curses. Agatha says it is a sign the city is alive, that nothing here ever truly dies. You think it is more likely a sign that nothing here is ever truly clean. Dorothea, of course, is obsessed with keeping the vermin at bay. She checks the corners each morning, inspects the cupboards and the woodpile, sends you and the others on endless missions to trap and poison and sweep. The customers must never see a rat, she says, as if saying it makes it so. You nod and do as you are told, though you know it is hopeless. The rats and bugs have lived here longer than any of you. They will be here long after you are gone. The customers complain, of course. There are fleas in the towels, one merchant shouts, shaking out a sheet as if he expects coins to fall from its folds. I saw a rat in the alley, another hisses, eyes wide as if he has glimpsed the devil himself. You apologize, you change the towel, you assure them it will never happen again. It always happens again. Sometimes, in the quiet hours, you wonder if you are becoming like the rats, adaptable, unkillable, able to squeeze into the cracks and corners of the city and survive on crumbs and scraps. You work in filth, but you learn to find a sort of peace in it. The insects are annoying. The rats are dangerous, but they are honest in their intentions. They take what they need. They do not pretend the world is cleaner than it is. You keep your own food hidden in a tin, tightly wrapped, but still you find teeth marks in the crust of your bread, holes in the cloth you use as a napkin. You curse the rats, but part of you admires their cunning. They survive, no matter how many traps Dorothea sets, no matter how many times you sweep and scrub. Sometimes, late at night, you hear them moving through the walls, their claws scratching in time with your heartbeat. You wonder if they are watching you, if they know your secrets, if they mock your efforts as you chase them from one end of the bathhouse to the other. The city belongs to them as much as it belongs to anyone, perhaps more. Insects, rats, filth, you fight them every day, and every night they return. It is a war you cannot win, but you wage it anyway, because the alternative is to give in, to let the dirt take you, to become just another shadow moving through the bathhouse. You are not ready for that. Not yet. You finish your sweeping, the broom rough in your hands, and chase the last rat back into its hole. You sit for a moment, back against the wall, breathing in the heavy air, listening to the scuttle of small feet in the dark. The bathhouse is quiet for now. You know it will not last. The next wave of customers will arrive soon, bringing new dirt, new demands, new reasons to scrub and curse and endure. You stand, brush the dust from your skirt, and return to work. There are worse things than rats. There is hunger, there is cold, there is the endless, thankless labor of the bathhouse. The vermin, at least, ask nothing from you but crumbs. The sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the floor. The war against filth goes on, and so do you. As evening creeps over the city, a different restlessness settles on the bathhouse. The long shadows bring with them not quiet, but a crackling tension, the kind that hangs over tired hands and empty pockets. You feel it every night, an itch between your shoulders, a wary look in the eye, the sense that at any moment something or someone will go missing. The first thefts are always small. Soap vanishes from its shelf. A towel disappears from the rack. A customer's wooden comb never finds its way back to his pile of clothing. Sometimes you spot a merchant tucking a copper spoon into his coat, or a craftsman palming a sliver of the precious lye when he thinks no one is watching. You are expected to notice, to intervene, but of course you do not. Not if you want to avoid being blamed, or worse, accused yourself. The other workers know the game. You watch as Marta slips an extra crust of bread into her pocket at midday, or as Sophie wraps her feet in a bit of linen meant for the guests. Agatha keeps the stubs of spent candles, melting them down at home for light, even though Dorothea inspects the stock every morning. Lene once found a lost silver button, pocketed it, and traded it for an apple at the market. When you noticed, she only grinned. Finders, keepers, that's the law of the city. You do not judge. In a place where even the smallest luxury is out of reach, theft becomes a kind of survival. You have your own secrets. A piece of soap hidden at the bottom of your apron, a ribbon snatched from the pile of lost and found, a coin slipped into your shoe when you swept the benches at the end of the day. You know Dorothea suspects, but as long as the losses are minor, she says nothing. She is not above keeping an extra coin for herself when the day's earnings are counted. But the line between necessity and greed is thin and easily crossed. It is not only the customers who steal. Among the workers, suspicion is as common as dirt. Once, a bit of cheese vanished from Agatha's sack. She blamed Marta, who denied it. Voices rose, hands clenched, threats whispered in corners. It was not about the cheese, not really, but about dignity, about being seen and respected, even in the smallest way. Quarrels break out over anything and everything: a missing bucket, a mop left unwashed, the last piece of clean linen. Voices echo off the stone walls. That was my task, not yours. You always take the easiest jobs. Keep your hands off my food. The words are sharp, the anger quick to rise and slow to fade. It is not the anger of enemies, but the anger of people pressed too close together, forced to share too little for too long. Sometimes the quarrels are quiet, cold wars waged with glances and muttered curses. Other times they flare into open shouting, slamming of doors, even a slap or a shove. You have seen Lane and Sophie pull each other's hair, watched as Agatha raised her broom at Marta, all dignity lost in the heat of the moment. You do not interfere. You have learned that these battles burn out on their own, leaving but only bruises and silence behind. The customers notice, of course. Some laugh, taking bets on which woman will win the next round. Others scowl, muttering about the lack of order, the noise, the unprofessional nature of the staff. They never see the work, only the results. They never notice when a quarrel means the floors are left unswept or the towels remain damp. They do not care why the soap has run out, only that their bath is not what they expected. Dorothea tries to keep control, her voice hard and unyielding. She threatens, she lectures, she doles out punishments, a shift with no break, a share of wages withheld, the worst jobs handed to the loudest mouths. But even she cannot stop the tide. The bathhouse runs on tension as much as on steam and water. Without it, nothing would ever get done. At the end of the day, when the last customer is gone, the quarrels are forgotten, or at least set aside. You sit together, backs against the wall, sharing a crust of bread or a laugh at some shared misery. There is a kind of camaraderie born of hardship, a recognition that, despite the thefts and fights, you are all in this together, bound by the bathhouse and the endless, thankless work. Still, you are careful. You count your coins twice, keep your things wrapped and hidden, watch the others out of the corner of your eye. Trust is another luxury, as rare and as fragile as the soap you hoard for yourself. You know, as everyone does, that desperation makes thieves of us all. Night falls, and the bathhouse settles into uneasy quiet. You sweep the last crumbs from the floor, check your bundle one last time, and prepare to leave. You lock the door behind you, not to keep out the world, but to keep in whatever little you have managed to save. The city outside is no different, a place where theft and quarrel are part of daily life. Here, at least, you know the rules, know when to speak, and when to keep your secrets. The day is over, but tomorrow will bring the same struggles, the same petty thefts, the same weary arguments, the same quiet moments of peace at the very end. You take a breath, step out into the night, and hope that what you carry is enough to see you through until morning. There are bad days in the bathhouse, and then there are days when the doors swing wide and you are reminded just how little control you have over your own safety. These are the days when the difficult customers arrive, not just loud or demanding, but truly troublesome. The ones who leave more mess than any child, more scars than any hard day's work. You can see the signs before they even cross the threshold. Sometimes it is the reek of ale and sour breath that arrives a moment ahead of them, or the wild, roving eyes of a man who has already spent his week's wage on drink. Sometimes it is a group, shoving, laughing, daring each other to cause a scene. Sometimes it is just a single man, eyes hard, mouth set, the kind who thinks the world owes him comfort and that you are part of that debt. You learn their tricks quickly. The drunks claim not to remember what they broke, whether it was a bowl, a bench, or a nose. They shout for hotter water, fresher towels, soap that you do not have. They curse you for moving too slow or for standing too close. Some try to grab your arm, to steady themselves, or just because they can. Once, one tried to kiss your cheek, his beard scratchy and foul. You ducked away, and he called you a whore in front of everyone. Dorothea glared, but did not intervene. The bathhouse has its own rules, and customers always come first, is one of them. There are the petty tyrants, too, minor officials, clerks, would be nobles who use their tiny scraps of authority like a cudgel. They talk down to you, demand privacy, hint that a bad word from them could have you out on the street by morning. They threaten to report you for every imagined slight. You smile, apologize, fetch whatever it is they want. Sometimes you fantasize about pouring a bucket of cold water over their heads, but you never do. The bathhouse does not protect you, and you have learned not to expect protection from anyone. The worst are those who bring violence with them, who turn every small slight into a challenge. You have seen arguments over soap escalate into brawls, seen men pull knives over a lost towel, watched as Dorothea and Agatha wrestled a furious merchant out the door by sheer force of will. The blood is cleaned up quickly, but the fear lingers. You remember every face, every word, every bruise that faded just a little too slowly. Not all trouble is loud. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the form of customers who linger too long, who watch you from the corner of the room, whose hands drift where they should not. You learn to move quickly, to keep your back to the wall, to never be alone in a room if you can help it. Lene calls them the creepers, and you both joke about them in the safety of the linen room, but there is no laughter when you hear the latch turn or footsteps behind you after dark. There is danger from women, too, sharp-tongued wives who accuse you of stealing, mothers who shriek if their child comes home with a scratch. You learn to check your pockets twice, to keep your head down, to take the blame for things you did not do. Better a lie than a scene, better a sigh than a shouting match that brings the mistress running. Sometimes the difficult customers leave something behind, a broken comb, a silver ring, a stain on the floor that will not come out. Once you found a bloodied rag tucked behind a tub, and you wondered whose fight it had been, whose story it told. You do not ask questions. You add it to the pile of things to be washed, to be mended, to be forgotten. You are never alone in this work. When the trouble starts, the others gather near. Agatha stands in the doorway, her arms folded, watching. The sisters move together, silent and swift, ready to fetch help or step in if things go wrong. Even Dorothea, for all her sharpness, will appear at your side if she thinks real danger is brewing. It is not solidarity, exactly, but it is the closest thing you have. In a place where everyone is powerless, you learn to protect one another in small ways, to cover for mistakes, to distract an angry customer, to whisper warnings when tempers rise. The day drags on, and the difficult customers come and go. Some leave a mess, some leave a bruise, some forget you the moment they step out the door. Others remember just enough to make your next shift a little harder. You clean up after them all. You mop the floor, scrub the blood from the stones, wash the soap from your hands, and move on to the next task. At the end of a day like this, your body aches in ways you did not think possible. Your hands shake when you scrub the last tub. You replay the words, the threats, the laughter that was never kind, and you wonder if it will ever be different. You remind yourself that you have survived again, and sometimes that is enough. You do not get thanks. You do not get justice. You get a battered coin, a half hearted nod, a moment of quiet in the linen room when the bathhouse finally empties out. You get another day to endure. That is all. The evening settles in, dark and heavy. You sweep the last crumbs from the floor, check your own bruises, and offer a silent prayer to no one in particular, just to the stone and the water and the sky above, that tomorrow will be easier. You know it will not be, but still, you get up and you go on. It is a strange thing how the body finds ways to keep moving long after it should have stopped. By evening, your arms feel as though they are made of lead. Your legs are numb, and your feet throb with every step. Each joint protests with a dull ache, every muscle tightening and loosening in a slow, endless rhythm. Yet you work on, because that is what you do, and what everyone in the bathhouse does. Stopping is not an option, not while there are tasks left to finish and customers left to serve. The light changes as dusk creeps in through the filthy windows. The pale gold of sunset never quite reaches the far corners, instead painting the steam and dust with a sullen, muddy glow. The air grows heavier. Every breath carries the taste of old sweat and burning wood. Your dress clings to your skin, damp with steam and the residue of spilled water and labor. The bathhouse becomes a world unto itself, cut off from the city outside, shrinking down to a haze of work, heat, and noise. The other women move through the space like ghosts, silent, tired, efficient. Agatha no longer bothers with small talk, her face set in lines of determination. Marta and Sophie are barely visible, their figures slipping from shadow to shadow as they finish folding linen or scouring benches. Line sings no songs now, her earlier cheer spent. She speaks only when necessary, her voice hoarse from hours of steam. You do not know how many hours you have been standing. Time is measured here, not by the bells of the church or the shifting of the sun, but by tasks. How many tubs have been filled? How many towels have been wrung out? How many buckets emptied? How many times you have scraped your knuckles on the stone floor? Evening is not a time so much as a sensation, a slow, creeping numbness that settles in your bones and crawls up your spine. Every so often, a fresh wave of customers arrives, latecomers who expect the same service and energy you gave at dawn. Some are quiet and grateful, others grumble and complain, but you treat them all the same. The smile you offer now is a ghost of the one you wore this morning. Your hands move automatically. Scrub, rinse, fold, carry. It is muscle memory, not will, that keeps you going. When there is a brief lull, you take the chance to sit for a moment, just a moment, on the edge of a bench. The wood is cold and hard, and you do not allow yourself to relax too much. To stop for long is dangerous. You have seen workers fall asleep mid task, jerking awake to Dorothea's cold glare or a customer's impatient shout. You stare at your hands. They are red and raw, the nails chipped, the knuckles swollen, stained with lye and soot. You cannot remember when they last looked clean. There is hunger, too, sharp and insistent, a constant reminder of the meagerness of your midday meal. Your stomach clenches, but you ignore it. There will be nothing more to eat until the day's work is done, and maybe not even then. Sometimes, if there are scraps left by the customers, you sneak a bite in the storeroom, a corner of bread, a half-eaten apple, a slice of dried meat that someone was too drunk or too proud to finish. It is not enough, but it is something. Dorothea is still here, of course, pacing the length of the bathhouse like a restless spirit. She checks the water, inspects the benches, scolds anyone she thinks is moving too slowly. You can see exhaustion in her, too, though she will never admit it. Her voice is sharp, her eyes rimmed with red. She does not sit. She does not stop. You wonder if she is afraid of what might happen if she lets herself feel how tired she is. As the evening deepens, the cold creeps back in. The fire in the stove is low, the last of the wood burning down to glowing embers. The steam rises more slowly, and you feel the chill bite at your ankles. The customers shiver and complain, demanding more heat, more hot water, more towels. You do what you can. You feed the fire, pour buckets into the tubs, hand out what linen is left. You move a little more slowly now, but no one seems to notice or care. The bathhouse empties gradually, voices fading as people return to their homes, to meals and warm beds and lives you can barely imagine. You listen to the echoes of their laughter, the sound of boots on the stone floor, the last grumbling argument at the door. When the final customer leaves, you let out a breath you did not realize you were holding. Now comes the last, hardest work, putting the place back together for tomorrow. Every surface must be wiped, every tub emptied, every scrap of linen accounted for. The floor is slick, the benches sticky, the air thick with the ghosts of 100 conversations. You move through the routine, each action slower, heavier, your mind drifting elsewhere. It would be easy to cry, But you do not. Tears are another luxury, wasted on a world that does not care. You see the others in the same state, Sophie rubbing her eyes with the heel of her hand, Lena stifling a yawn so wide it cracks her jaw, Agatha stretching her back with a low groan. For a moment, there is a kind of unity in your exhaustion, a silent acknowledgement that you have all survived another day. You catch Lena's eye, and she manages a faint smile. Almost done, she whispers. You nod. Almost. Outside, the city is dark. The bathhouse windows reflect only your own tired faces, drawn and pale, framed by the smudges you never have time to clean. You are a part of this place now, its muscle, its will, its unending work. At last, when the last bucket is emptied, the last rag wrung out, Dorothea nods her approval. Go, she says, her voice softer than usual, before you fall over. You do not need to be told twice. You gather your few things, wrap your shawl tightly around your shoulders, and step out into the night. Your feet carry you home by habit alone. The city is quieter now, but still dangerous, still indifferent. You walk carefully, one foot in front of the other, thinking only of your bed, your moment of rest, the few hours you can call your own before it all begins again. Exhaustion is your constant companion. You do not fight it anymore. You endure because that is what you have always done and what you will do tomorrow. When the last customer has finally left and Dorothea has bolted the doors, you would think the day is over. But you know better. The bathhouse is never truly finished with you, not until every sign of the day's labor, every stain, every puddle, every scrap of cloth has been erased or hidden away for tomorrow. It is as if the city itself demands that you start every morning with the lie of freshness, the lie of order, as if all the filth and noise and misery can simply be wiped away before the next dawn. You begin with the tubs. The water, once steaming and clean, is now tepid and gray, swirling with the residue of 100 bodies. You pull the plugs and listen as the water gurgles away, carrying with it whatever dirt, sweat, and secrets have built up over the course of the day. What remains is a ring of scum that clings to the sides like a final insult. You scrub at it with a stiff brush, your knuckles whitening, the motion mechanical and endless. The stains fade but never disappear. You wonder if, given 1,000 years, you could ever get them truly clean. The floor is next. Someone, usually Agatha or Marta, sloshes a bucket of water across the stones, sending rivers of filth toward the drains. You sweep the debris along, bits of straw, strands of hair, crumbs of bread, the odd nail or button left behind. Every so often, your broom catches on something larger, a lost shoe, a child's toy, a rag that was once white. You set these aside for Dorothea's inspection. Everything has value, even the things nobody wants. Linen is gathered and carried to the back, piled in sour heaps that wait for the next day's washing. You know already that many stains will have set, that the best efforts with cold water and weak lye will never quite restore them. But you fold and stack anyway, forcing order onto chaos, pretending that neatness is the same as cleanliness. The room smells of mold and old soap, a reminder that no matter how much you wash, nothing in the bathhouse is ever really new. The benches and tables are wiped down with damp rags. Your hands move slowly, wrists aching, shoulders stiff. Sometimes you leave streaks, too tired to care, but Dorothea's sharp eyes miss nothing. Again, she says, if she sees a smear or a crumb. You sigh and do it again, hating her for it and loving her too, in the way you might love a stubborn toothache, because at least she is still there, still making sure you do not slip entirely into apathy. The windows are the last to be tended, though nobody expects them to sparkle. They are streaked with the memory of too many storms, too much smoke, the breath of countless customers fogged and dried and layered on the glass. You rub at the grime, squinting into the darkness beyond, knowing that even if you could clean them to a shine, the view outside would be the same. Narrow alleys, crooked roofs, the glow of lanterns against wet stone. Throughout it all, there is no conversation. You and the others work in silence, the sounds of cleaning, the slap of a wet rag, the scrape of a brush, the squeak of wood filling the space between you. It is a ritual, and rituals do not need words. At times, you catch Lena's eye, or see Agatha pause to rub her back, and you feel a kinship that runs deeper than friendship, deeper even than blood. You are bound together by fatigue and necessity, and the knowledge that, come morning, you will do it all again. Sometimes, when Dorothea is in a better mood, she lets you leave a little early, even if it means a corner goes unswept or a window is left smudged. But tonight she is watchful, the weight of the week settling on her shoulders. She checks each room, running her fingers along the edges, peering beneath benches, lifting the lids of empty water vats. Only when she is satisfied, never happy, only satisfied, does she dismiss you. Go on, then, and do not forget your things. You gather what is yours: a scarf, a cracked comb, a bit of bread wrapped in cloth. You check twice that nothing is left behind. Anything forgotten becomes public property by morning, a fact every worker learns quickly. Once, in your first week, you left your shawl draped over a hook. By sunrise, it was gone, claimed by someone else, or perhaps simply swallowed by the bathhouse itself. Since then, you are careful. You trust the bathhouse no more than you trust the city outside. Before leaving, you check the fire. The embers are low, the stove giving off just enough heat to keep the pipes from freezing. You stir them with the poker, listening to the quiet crackle, the one warm sound in an otherwise cold room. You close the stove door gently, a small gesture of care in a world that rarely returns it. When the last task is done and Dorothea unlocks the front door, you step outside into the night. The air is colder than you remember, or perhaps you are simply more tired. The city is quieter now, the clamor of day replaced by the murmur of distant voices, the creak of wagons, the occasional cry from a far off alley. You breathe it in, the stink and the damp and the faint sweetness of wood smoke, And for a moment, you feel free, not happy, not safe, but free in the way only exhaustion can bring. Behind you, the bathhouse waits in darkness, all evidence of your work scrubbed away, every proof of your existence erased for another day. It will be as if you were never there at all, except that you will return tomorrow and the cycle will begin again. You pull your shawl tight and start for home, every muscle heavy, your mind already drifting toward sleep. There is no triumph in this ending, only relief. The day is over. Tomorrow, the city and the bathhouse will claim you again. But tonight, for a few hours at least, you belong to yourself. You would think, after the doors are bolted and the windows shuttered, that the bathhouse finally rests. But in the city, nothing is ever truly finished. Not the work, not the noise, not the movement of bodies in the night. It is in these last, uncertain hours, when the rooms are half dark and the air is thick with the day's ghosts, that the strangest guests arrive. You have learned to dread the sound, a quiet knock at the side door, a shuffle of footsteps in the alley, voices that are careful not to carry. Sometimes Dorothea answers, sometimes she sends you a flick of her hand and a look that brooks no argument. You know how to walk softly, how to open the door just enough to see without being seen. There are rules, unwritten but ironclad. Never invite them inside. Never let them linger. Never speak their names if you know them. The night guests come for reasons that are never spoken. The old men, stooped and hollow eyed, bring a coin clutched tight in their fist, desperate for a little warmth before returning to empty rooms. They shuffle inside, mumbling thanks, their movements slow and uncertain. You lead them to the smallest tub, fill it with whatever hot water is left, and look away as they slip off threadbare garments, their skin marked by years of labor and loss. There are women, too, faces hidden by shawls, voices low, always glancing over their shoulders. Some are alone, but others come in pairs, hands clasped so tightly that the knuckles are white. You do not ask what they flee. You bring towels, soap, a moment's peace. They scrub it themselves with a fury you have seen only in the truly desperate, as if the right combination of water and lye might erase a memory, or a bruise, or a sin. Sometimes it is not fear, but hunger that brings them. Once, a boy no older than 12, barefoot and shivering, offered you a handful of pebbles for a wash and a scrap of bread. You let him in, pressed a piece of your own meal into his hand, watched as he wolfed it down before the water was even ready. When Dorothea found out, she only shook her head. Better a pebble in the till than a body in the gutter, she said, her voice softer than you had ever heard. There are visitors who come not for the bath, but for something else, a place to meet, to pass a message, to trade something forbidden for something precious. You see their faces only in glimpses. A merchant's son, pale with worry, a woman in a velvet dress, eyes wide and wild, perfume masking the scent of fear. You know enough to keep quiet, to take the coin offered and ask no questions. The bathhouse is safe because it knows how to forget. The most dangerous are the noblemen who arrive with their cloaks pulled tight and their eyes hidden beneath heavy brows. They bring laughter that is never kind, demands that are never voiced outright, promises of gold that never quite materialize. You have seen Lene turn them away with a look sharp as any knife, but you have also seen her count bruises the next morning, jaw set and eyes bright with unshed tears. For these nighttime visits, the rules of the day no longer apply. You work in silence, keeping to the edges of the room, never making eye contact unless it is absolutely necessary. Sometimes Dorothea stays close, arms folded, her presence enough to keep the worst of the dangers at bay. More often, you are alone, the sounds of the city bleeding through the cracks in the walls, a dog barking, a drunkard singing, the clatter of a cart on cobblestones. There are moments of kindness, unexpected and fragile. An old man leaves a crust of bread on the table with a whispered, "Thank you, child." A woman presses a coin into your palm, her eyes full of something like gratitude. But these moments vanish quickly, swallowed by the night, replaced by the next knock, the next story, the next secret. You work quickly, efficiently, your body numb with exhaustion. The last of the hot water is gone, the towels are damp, and your hands ache from endless wringing. Still, you keep going, because to stop is to invite questions, to break the fragile peace that holds these nighttime visits together. When the last guest finally leaves, you bolt the door behind them and stand for a moment in the silence. The bathhouse feels emptier than ever, its walls echoing with what has been said and what has been left unsaid. You press your back to the cool stone, eyes closed, letting yourself feel just how tired you are. Dorothea finds you there, her face softer in the low light. "You did well," she says, her approval rare and precious. She offers you a cup of water, cold but clean. You drink it in silence, savoring the way it cuts through the taste of lye and smoke. The city outside is quiet now. The world has shrunk to this room, this moment, this breath. For the first time all day, you let yourself believe that it is over, that you have made it through, that tomorrow you can do it again. You gather your things, wrap yourself in your shawl, and move toward the door. The air is cold on your face, sharp with the promise of another hard night. But for now, at least, the bathhouse is empty, the water is still, and you are alone with your thoughts. You step out into the alley, close the door behind you, and listen to the silence. The secrets of the city swirl around you, invisible and unending. You walk away, head down, heart heavy, knowing that some stains are never washed out, no matter how hot the water, no matter how hard you scrub. There are some who say that the city is never truly asleep, that after dark it merely changes its mask. You have learned to believe it. When you leave the bathhouse, the sky is thick and starless, and the narrow streets stretch out before you like the ribs of some vast, slumbering beast. You pull your shawl tight, hiding your face in its scratchy folds, and begin the nightly journey home, a ritual just as familiar and joyless as any task within the bathhouse walls. The first steps are always the hardest. Your legs protest, your back aches, and your feet burn with the pain of standing for so many hours. You move slowly, wary of the shadows that cluster at every turn. The city is not empty. It is simply filled with a different kind of life. Shapes that shift in the corners of your vision, voices that mutter and laugh from behind closed doors. The rustle of bodies too poor or too proud or too unlucky to find shelter. You walk with purpose, eyes down, hands close to your body. The alleys here are narrow, the stones slick with mud and whatever else the day has brought. You know which puddles are deep, which corners best avoided, which doorways might hold danger or, worse, indifference. Sometimes you walk with one of the other women, trading tired words and silence in equal measure. But tonight, as on most nights, you are alone. It is not the city's thieves you fear most, though you are not foolish enough to ignore the threat. There are stories, always stories. A girl dragged into a side street for the coins in her pocket, a man beaten for the bread in his sack, a woman who vanished and was never spoken of again. But the worst dangers are quieter. The guards, half drunk and searching for someone to blame for their own misery. The gangs of apprentices, bored and reckless. The invisible judgment of those who watch from the windows, seeing everything but doing nothing. You pass the market square, empty now except for the stray dogs and the scavengers picking through the day's refuse. The air here is sharp, with the smell of rotting cabbage and spilled ale. Somewhere, a rat squeals as it fights another for a scrap of meat. You keep moving, boots squelching through the muck, the memory of clean water already fading from your skin. The city's sounds are different at night, less hurried, more uncertain. The creak of a wagon wheel, the distant shout of a quarrel, the lonely clatter of a shutter blown open by the wind. Sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear singing, drunken and off key, rising from the taverns in the wealthier quarter. Sometimes you catch a scrap of laughter, so out of place it seems a kind of cruelty. You cross yourself as you pass the church, the stone tower looming pale and watchful against the darkness. The bells do not ring at this hour, but you feel their silence all the same. The priests are long asleep, their prayers said for the living and the dead alike. You wonder if anyone prays for the bathhouse workers, for those who toil and scrub and scrape in the hidden corners of the city. You doubt it. You do not remember the last time you prayed for yourself. You hurry past a group of men gathered around a barrel fire, their faces hidden by shadow. One calls out, words slurred by drink, but you do not answer. You keep your head down, your pace steady, heart pounding in your ears. You know not to run, not to draw attention. You are neither young enough, nor old enough, nor pretty enough to interest them for long, and tonight luck is with you. They turn back to their fire, and you keep moving. You skirt the edges of a puddle that stinks of things you cannot name, stepping carefully so as not to soak your only shoes. The wind picks up, swirling your skirt around your legs, biting through the thin wool. You shiver, teeth clenched against the cold. The city is a beast, and at night its hunger is sharpest. Sometimes You pass a shuttered window and catch a glimpse of another life. The warm glow of a fire, the sound of a child's laughter, the smell of stew drifting through a crack in the wall. For a moment, you are filled with longing, a dull, hopeless ache for something softer, safer, quieter than your own world. But longing is useless. You walk on, letting the dream slip away. You reach your street, narrow and crooked, lined with hovels pressed shoulder to shoulder like beggars in a churchyard. There are no lanterns here, only the moon's pale face peering down through a gap in the clouds. Your building leans a little more each year, its beams warped by rain and rot. The door is unlocked. No one in this quarter has anything worth stealing. You slip inside, careful not to wake those already sleeping on the stairs. The room is as you left it, small, dark, and barely warmer than the street outside. The straw mattress is still there, a few crusts of bread tucked beneath for safekeeping. You set your things down, breathing the damp air, listening to the familiar sounds of snoring, coughing, the whimper of a child, the scurry of a mouse in the rafters. Home is not a word you use for this place, but it is where you end up, night after night, alive and mostly whole. You sit for a moment, just breathing. The bathhouse, the city, the cold, all of it peels away, leaving only the ache in your bones and the slow, grinding pulse of exhaustion. You eat the bit of bread you saved, chewing slowly, letting the taste linger as long as possible. You wash your hands in a chipped basin, the water colder than stone, and scrub at the worst of the day's filth. You lie down at last, curling up beneath your thin blanket, pulling your knees to your chest. Your thoughts drift, too tired to form into dreams. The city outside murmurs and shifts, but for now, you are beyond its reach. Tomorrow it will find you again. Tonight, you are only yourself, a body in a bed, breathing in the dark, waiting for another day to begin. This is your journey home, not safe, not certain, but endured like everything else. It is survival and nothing more. You do not expect dreams anymore. By the time you lie down, stiff, hungry, every muscle still throbbing from the day's work, sleep is not a blessing, just another thing your body demands and takes without ceremony. You tuck your legs beneath your thin blanket, wrapping it tight around your shoulders, and nestle into the straw that sags beneath your weight. The familiar scents of mildew, stale sweat, and old bread cling to everything, including you. The room is never truly quiet. Even in the deepest hour of night, the city makes itself known. A cough from the next bed, the wheeze of an old woman struggling for air, the soft smack of a mouse somewhere under the floorboards. A baby fusses in the next room, its cries muffled but relentless. Someone turns over in their sleep, muttering a prayer or a curse. The city's pulse does not stop for darkness. You press your face to the scratchy blanket and try to relax, but your mind is restless. It replays the day's moments, Dorothea's voice sharp as lie, the splash of dirty water on your skin, the bruised arms of the women who came after sunset, the empty eyes of the men who could afford only the smallest wash. Your thoughts drift through every scrape and ache, every tired glance traded with Lene, every time you caught Marta or Sophie pocketing a crumb. It is all there, pressing down on you, as heavy as the city itself. You try to find comfort in the small things, a patch of blanket not yet torn, the memory of the apple you ate at midday, the way the sunlight briefly caught the steam in the bathhouse, turning everything gold for a single moment before fading back to gray. You think about the bread in your belly, however stale, and the fact that you have a bed at all, even if you share it with vermin and strangers. Most of all, you focus on your breathing. In, out, in, out. The world narrows to the steady rhythm of your lungs, the slow loosening of your clenched fists. Sleep comes in snatches, broken by dreams that are more memory than fantasy. You dream of water, always water, scalding, icy, thick with soap or blood or both. Sometimes you dream of scrubbing and never coming clean. Sometimes you dream of home, though you are not sure what that means anymore. In the hours before dawn, you wake and sleep in cycles, never fully one or the other. You roll over, trying to ease the ache in your hips, the soreness in your shoulders. There is never enough warmth, never enough softness. Even when you manage to rest, it feels like waiting, like counting breaths until the bells ring and the day starts over. Somewhere outside, a cock crows. The city begins to stir. You can hear the market carts rattling over the stones, the slow march of the first workers to their stations, the bark of a dog already hungry. You lie there for a moment longer, willing yourself to disappear, to become nothing more than another shadow in the corner. But the city will not let you go. It calls you back with every sound, every cold draft slipping beneath the door, every memory of work unfinished. You rise slowly, feeling every year and every hardship. Your hands are swollen and red, your feet stiff and numb. You brush the straw from your dress, tie your hair with the same ragged strip of cloth, and gather your few possessions. There is no time for washing. There is barely time for a swallow of water, for a bite of whatever is left from the day before. Hunger gnaws, but you ignore it. The bathhouse will open soon. Dorothea will be waiting. The other women will gather, trading jokes and curses, bracing themselves for another round of filth and labor. The cycle will begin again, as it always does. You pause at the door, taking one last breath of the stale, cold air, and steel yourself for what is to come. Outside, the city is waking, already alive with the business of survival. You are only one among thousands, but you endure as you did yesterday, as you will tomorrow. This is your life, a patchwork of toil, of small victories and endless defeats, of hunger and laughter and dirt that never truly washes away. There are no miracles, no sudden freedoms. There is only the day and the work and the brief sleep that comes before you start it all again. And so you step out, shivering in the morning chill, the bathhouse looming ahead, the city swallowing you whole. You walk forward, not with hope, but with the stubborn knowledge that you will survive, at least for one more day.